Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Default Podcast. This is a new segment of the podcast called the Founder Series. And today's guest is Bugg, founder of digit.fyi. Thankfully, I got that right because this is the second attempt. And I'll let Ray introduce what Digit do and talk me through it.
Thanks, Leah. And Deepest, thanks for having me on. Digit was set up getting on for 12 years now. In Scotland, we didn't have an informal community that looked after the needs and desires of the IT community at all levels. There were pockets of different people meeting for curries on a Thursday night and stuff like that. But we started the business to provide events for IT personnel, security personnel, leaders, and it's manifested itself from 2 events in the first year to 12 events in 2025, and that includes 9 conferences, 2 expos, 2 awards, and monthly dinners. So that's where we are with our event side of the business. And in 2017, we launched our publishing side of the business. That's getting 70,000 page views a month. We employ 4 journalists. We publish 35 stories a week. I think it just demonstrates how busy Scotland's technology community is and how enviable it is to look at Scotland and see where it's going from startups to mature enterprises.
Excellent. Thanks for that intro. And, you and I have known each other a few years, and I think I wanted to do a specific episode that would help showcase what we're doing here in Scotland, and people like yourself is really given a focal point and an area for our community to effectively come together, and not just only across cyber, but also a broad spectrum of technology in different industries. And one of the key events that I've been at as well, and thankfully been asked back a few times to speak at, was obviously Scott Secure, and that has definitely given people like myself an area to obviously talk about specialist showcasing of knowledge, giving us a voice, and also you guys have moved more into mental health items, and I think that's really important for people that are in technology related roles. And again, I don't think I've thanked you enough, Ray, for obviously your contribution towards Scotland. And again, I wanted to create a specialist episode that would focus on that. And kind of jumping straight in then, Ray, if you don't mind, is the background and inspiration of this. And I'm interested to know, what was the spark or the aha moment that led you to start the company?
At the time, I was an employee and I was organising and working on similar products, but they were specifically for public services. So it was a magazine about public sector that I created for this employer called Connect, and it talked about digitisation and IT and government, based around something called the McClellan Review, which was a big review by John McClellan, one of the directors of Rangers, who undertook a big audit of government infrastructure and worked out how much they were spending and how much they should be spending in comparison. And to top that up, we did a number of events around cloud, cyber, digital transformation, and other topics. And a suggestion from myself as the head of sales for that product, I said, well, why aren't we doing this for the private sector? Public sector is 15% of the annual spend of IT in Scotland. There's another £6 billion worth of IT spend out there, and there's no community for that. Let's do it. Pat on the back. No, get back in your box. You're doing this. Yeah, we don't want you to come to us with strategic ideas. So rather than get back in our box, let's cut a hole in it. Spoke to a number. I think I'm going to be breaching contract now 12 years down the line. I don't think come after me, but spoke to a number of our clients. They said, if I did private sector events, where do you want me to go? They said, well, go to Aberdeen. No one's ever done an IT conference in Aberdeen for the oil and gas guys. We all have to park down to London. So I said, well, give me some money then. So I went to a range of clients, 50K in 2 weeks. Business started, went up to Aberdeen, huge success. Here we are, still 12 years down the line with the beast that we now have. So it was really the rejection of an employer that was the catalyst, and the support of vendors and suppliers. And a special mention to somebody who you may know, Mark Weir, who's now at Checkpoint. who at the time was country manager for F5, then he was at Fortinet, Deloitte, now he's at Checkpoint. And Mark, I think, was probably one of the biggest inspirations for doing that. He really sort of gave me the mettle to sort of make the decision and go forward with no money.
Yeah.
But the investment from those people into the first event gave me 6 months running costs, and here we are, still in profit and a debt-free business as a result of it. So yeah, that was the big spark.
Nice. And shout out to Mark again for obviously taking a punt and supporting this. And it's been testament to, where it's grown now. And, who are some of your biggest influences or mentors when you were starting out? Obviously you've mentioned Mark there, but was there anyone else that kind of, that had an
Yeah,
influence?
yeah. My former employer, Hamish Miller, he was really supportive. Gutted that I left his employ. He then sold the business not long after, and started his own events business that doesn't compete with me, I hasten to add. But he's been hugely supportive. My business partner as well, Pete. Pete's the sensible one in the crowd. Business. I'm a bit gung ho and a bit free and easy. Pete's the algorithm within the business, the process driven. But that chalk and cheese side, I think is very complementary. I think when you're two alike, I think that can really cause issues. I think when you're completely different, you do tend to find common ground. He's been amazing. Through all the rough and the smooth, and particularly through COVID,
Yeah.
when we all nearly lost our marbles, because obviously we got closed down essentially for 18 months and had to go online with our proposition. So they're the sort of two big people for me, I think, in terms of getting this business started. And at the time, my wife, she sort of, we just had a baby. She said, you're going from safe employee into this big unknown. I said, I need to do it. She went, do it. And here we are. So yeah, those three probably.
I love it. And obviously I know Pete very well, and, shout out to Pete. And of course, all our respective partners that obviously support people when they're starting a business. I know it can be quite scary. And, as you said, a few years down the line, and you obviously survived COVID. I was part of a couple of online events as well, and I'm glad that obviously you guys had come through it. So in terms of, was there a particular problem or challenge you wanted to solve with the business? Obviously you'd mentioned there was a massive gap. Yeah.
I think all I could see in my research, and it was a very short amount of research because I decided to launch the business 1 month and launched it the next. Literally, as soon as my 30-day notice period was up, I was trading. But I noticed, and it was actually Symantec who inspired me to sort of dig deeper. Symantec did one of their own events in Edinburgh. I think they had 50 people there. Then they had a night in a hotel on Loch Lomond and speedboats and stuff like that. And I had a look at the agenda. And no disrespect to Symantec, are they still around? But
Yeah,
no
I think so.
disrespect to them. But yeah, no disrespect to them. But it was all Symantec speakers. So it's product this, Symantec that, product that, Symantec that. So it was a thinly disguised sales pitch. And I think that's really where vendors were at that time back in 2013. They'd do their own events, they'd have their own speakers. There wouldn't be anybody from the consumption side talking about the warts and all approach to what they do, that cold face approach like you do. And I thought, this is wrong. It's there's no communication, there's no community here. So after we did the Aberdeen event in March 2014, we then did, as we called it, Scott Cloud. Everything with Scott in front of it, Scott Cloud. Cloud Computing Conference, we did that at Napier, huge success. We then did Scotland's first ever FinTech conference, because FinTech was just starting to emerge. And when you can see a bubble about to burst, I thought, well, we'll take a punt on that. Didn't make any money, but was really well received. And then digital transformation came after that. So it was actually 4 events in the first year. It was just down to the fact that there wasn't a cohesive community. There was no central hub or point of communication and news, an opportunity for IT end users to gather. So that was the main inspiration for doing that, was just seeing that the market didn't exist. So I didn't enter into a market. I created a market by proxy.
Nice. And that's sometimes obviously the best thing is, has been taking a niche and then obviously running with it. And then, but talking about the early days, what were the early days of the company like? And do you have any funny or
Yeah.
memorable moments? I'm sure if Pete was on the call, he'd have a few stories about it. Yeah.
Well, we did the first couple of events without Pete, 'cause Pete came into the business about 6, 7 months after the first event. I think actually he came in about 4 months after the first event. Um, it was doing everything. I did all the websites, I did all the marketing, I did all the sales. It was pure bootstrap. There were 3 employees. It was me, Pete, and Jill, our event manager. You obviously know Jill, who's still with us, I hasten to add. So hopefully the company culture is on point for people to stay as long as they have. But it really was just learning. I've never created a website before. There you go. I'd never used a CRM. Um, there you go. Get learning about that as well. And at the same time, make sure the revenue's in for the next event. It was just learning about admin. Admin, what's that? I pick up the phone, I put my commission sheet in, and I get paid. What's admin? Um, Learning about tax, VAT, all these things that you have to have, all these different facets to running a business, um, and realize that running a business actually isn't fun. You know, it might be once you've got to where you want to get to and you can cut back a little bit, but I think to grow a business, there's no fun involved at all. It is just a very, very steep learning curve. So yeah, it was just learning new tricks, new tasks, and just finding my way. But thankfully, with a really good sort of support network, there are plenty of people I could go to and say, "Do you know how to do that?" And a friend of mine did the first logo for us, and calling on favors and stuff like that. So yeah, just learning as you go, which meant long hours, which meant not seeing the baby,
Yeah.
and not seeing the family, and constantly being at work. But very soon it's sort of plateaued, and it only took a year or so to get out of that framework.
And did you have any funny stories of the early days, or even one funny story?
It's a chihuahua by mistake. Um, in the office, we're in a shared office to begin with, in one of these like incubator type places. The old Corn Exchange down in Leith,
Yeah.
which is now there's Benzie who's got that now, one of the the Grand Theft Auto founders. He's got it now for a games company. But yeah, there was a woman in there, and her chihuahua decided to run across me as I was walking across the office, and actually got launched. That landed very softly, I hasten to add, and was no injuries, but clearly the embarrassment of kicking someone's chihuahua across an office was amusing to some and horrific to others, and made me want to curl up and die. But yeah, plenty of funny stories, but probably not for consumption on this podcast.
Definitely, maybe we do an X-rated version, but yeah, that poor Chihuahua, I love it. And so where did the name for the company come up? Like was this just a off the cuff thing? Obviously I try to pronounce it and make an arse of it every time, but yeah.
We started off with, we were Scott Tech Engagement till 2017, and then Pete and I sat down, and he went, right, if we're going to start publishing, let's give ourselves a more recognizable brand name. And I said straight away, I went, Digit. He went, no, let's not be too hasty. So we went through about 100 other different things in Gadget and Byte Scott and just a whole weird and wacky thing. Thank God ChatGPT wasn't around then, because we'd have put it into ChatGPT and got 1,000 options out of it. And then we circled back and realised, after doing a little bit of a litmus test on the people that we knew, that Digit was good. Digit.fyi, digit for your information. What do you do to find information? You use your digit. That's a swiping finger, your digit. Digital. So it all sort of just sounded right at the time. So it sounds like a long process. It wasn't. It was a few days of me fighting for it, Pete
Yeah.
fighting against it, Pete finally realizing actually that does work. But he did it the way that he always does it. That process driven. Let's cover all the bases. And I respect him for that. But yeah, we came back to Digit, and here we are, 8 years down the line, still Digit.
Nice.
So that's how the name came to be. .fyi because we couldn't get .com.
Ah, there you
So
go. Simple.
we thought we'd provide the information, so .fyi, and they are. It was we didn't have to go to any agencies and get any bigwigs sort of thinking for us, or go to any strategists or consultants or anything like that because we couldn't afford it. So we just put our heads together and came up with it.
Superb. And then in terms of any unconventional advice that you've received when starting a company, and did you follow it?
Yeah, somebody said to me, "Don't pay the VAT." I very quickly realised you do pay a VAT, but he's not in business anymore, so I think that sort of demonstrates that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been unconventional advice. I just think there's been salient, friendly, genuine advice put my way. We were new, we were novel, we were needed in Scotland. There were similar organisations down in the south as well, and there's obviously a lot of organisations like that floating around now. CIO clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we wanted to be a national organisation. We wanted to create something which people weren't excluded from. And as you'll know from coming to our events, we don't charge people to come to our events.
Yeah.
We never have. If they're an IT end user, if they're in that technical role, you don't pay. If you want to sell to those people who are in those roles, you do pay to attend. But that only represents 3% of our audience. The other 97% is people like yourself, your CISOs, your IT directors, your CIOs. So we wanted to exclude barriers to exclusion were stripped away. And will always be free to attend. So I think that's the best way to start a community, is make your product free. But at the same time, it allowed us to be very selective to create good quality audiences, and sponsors and vendors and suppliers like a good quality audience. So we're 100% sponsor funded, and have been since day one. So thanks to the support, mostly of the Scottish IT community, that's kept us going.
Nice. And do you think that other revenue streams would come into the business through, I don't know, maybe like if you went international, is that something that you guys want to take forward as a company? Is that something on the horizon? Or
yeah, yeah. We're looking quite closely at other devolved administrations, Wales,
okay,
Northern Ireland. I think equally they've been a little bit left out of the framework.
yeah,
It all tends to be London centric, maybe Manchester centric as well. Manchester's making it a name for itself now as a digital hub. I think a lot of cities, most cities now, are making themselves a name as a digital hub. I think that's just the evolution of digital that created that by proxy. But I think in terms of having that sort of cohesive network, we haven't seen it in Wales. I'd like to do a security event in Wales. I'd like to invite to speak at that event in Wales when we decide to do it. And Northern Ireland as well. No enterprise events over there for the IT crowd. So devolved administrations, maybe other verticals as well. I think there's other business verticals in Scotland that really don't have fair representation when it comes to community and events.
yeah.
Engineering. You don't hear a lot about engineering these days, do you?
This is very true.
Yeah, but it's massive. It's huge in Scotland. And there's organisations that I think would love to have events put on for the engineering community. So we're probing and prodding different things. We're in the process of bringing somebody new into the business who's going to be completely revenue driven in their role, from a management level, from a board level. And they're going to probably be the person that suggests where those other revenue streams come from. A period of scale is upon us. So the madness that has been the last 10 years is going to get even madder.
Good. I'm glad to hear that there's plans, and obviously, selfishly, I want Scottish companies to do very well. And I think you're spot on with the devolved elements. Like Northern Ireland's become a bit of a cyber hub. Like a lot of companies are there, like Meta Compliance being one of them. I know
Good
there's been a
support from the
lot.
government as well. Good support
Yeah,
from the Assembly. They're really good support. There's a cyber division now of the government, not just focused on protecting its own infrastructure, but on building out the community in Northern Ireland as well. There's pockets in Wales. I think there's something in Wales as well that we've been looking at. And we'll approach these organisations and we'll just sort of say, we're going to come in. We don't want your money. We just want your support, and we'll create the community for you, and we'll bring them together. So hopefully, once those conversations start, we'll have eager ears upon us. We'll see.
Yeah. Nice. And then talking about the company culture and the team, obviously you've mentioned it's a small team, but how would you describe your company culture in one sentence?
Jovial, informal, banter-led, caring.
Yeah.
That's maybe not a sentence because that wouldn't be very good punctuation, would it? But I think that sort of surmises it. I think up until the point of COVID, we didn't need to concentrate on company culture because we were more like a family. We're all in the office every day. We were spitballing constantly, laughing with each other constantly, and it was really informal. As the business is growing now, we're departmentalizing. So I think you have got to implement a bit of company culture now within the four walls, particularly as we're distance working most of the time and we don't see each other most of the time. So I think company culture stands for a lot. And I think that encompasses, respect, how we communicate with each other, productivity, support, and support not just at a work level, but on a personal level as well. Make sure that your staff are healthy, make sure they're happy. And there's been instances when staff haven't been, and we've supported them all the way through that. That for me is a very simple way to run a business. You gain the respect of the people that work for you by doing the right thing for them, and it's a happy mix.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, we discussed earlier about a quirky tradition or ritual your team has. It's entirely up to you if you want to pass on that one or if you've got an answer.
We don't do anything quirky. We just take the piss out of each other.
I love it. I love it. But again, that's what suits your company in terms of that dynamic, and you never take yourself seriously. But I would say this: every engagement I've had with you guys or seen you guys working, it's always professional and very well executed. I mean, given the scale of these expos, with a small team, I don't know how you do it, and credit to you, very, very hard working team. So
for delivery, it's credit to Jill. Jill was employee number one. Nobody messes with Jill. Her Northern Irish brogue makes her sound like she's a toughie, but she's a big softie as well. She's brilliant, and she's so good at her job. If she gets these things, she delivers them. I decide how it's going to be. She delivers it based on that brief and nails it every single time. And I think for the amount of events that we do, without bragging, it becomes just part of the routine now. We've got that set routine. We've perfected it. Very, very little goes wrong with our events now. If something goes wrong, it's tech. The other thing goes wrong with our event is tech, and sometimes we can't control that. But we've not had any major mishaps. It's just down to Jill. Bless her.
Yeah. And again, have we mentioned Jill? But thanks, Jill, for all the work in the background.
Jill.
In terms of obviously kind of making things a bit lighter, again, if your company was a character in a movie, who would it be and why? I mean, this could go anywhere. Yeah.
Well, it depends. If it's me, it's probably Mr. Bean. If it's Pete, it's A Beautiful Mind. So the guy that played Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind. I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. One which I'll have to ponder. You maybe ask me that at the end. I'll think of that in the subconscious and see if I can. If my company was a character in a film, wow, I'd probably say Forrest Gump.
Okay.
Not quite unassuming, but absolutely nails it. So Forrest Gump.
Cool. I like it. And give me a second. So how did you keep the team? How do you keep the team motivated and inspired, especially during tough times? You'd mentioned COVID. You and I had spoken during that point as well. When I think there was a large community of people kind of worried as well. Where the world was going to go, and obviously what was going to happen to you guys, because you're a great source of information in our country. So how did you keep everybody motivated during that period?
Didn't furlough. We sort of erred to the side of caution. We said, guys, we're going to put you down to 80% time and 80% pay, and we're doing this just to just to feel where we're going with this. And obviously, as directors, we didn't pay ourselves for a few months as well. And we found an online way of doing events that was managed in-house. Lola, our marketing manager, became project manager and built out this. We had a white label. Event platform called Six Connects, which created exhibition stands and auditoriums and stuff like that. And Lola, bless her, it was like a giant CMS that she was working on. She built a conference center for us essentially, and just put all these nuts and bolts together. And it was one of the, Pete, with his amazing ability to bring in amazing speakers, created very, very compelling events. Jill obviously didn't have as much to do physically, but had a lot more to do behind the scenes on the admin side of the events. And Lola built out this amazing platform for us. Ben, who just joined the business in January 2020, the business development manager, got baptism by fire for him. But what we did is we invested about £100,000 into getting the virtual events off the ground. And the reason we did that, we spent our entire war chest, is because we knew people were going to do it absolutely terribly. And we knew that if we nailed that first time, word would get around, and word did get around. And we had something to show potential sponsors for the rest of COVID. It lasted longer for our industry than we thought it would.
Yeah.
So we were out of business for 18 months on the in-person side. So we had to, keep this business model going for 18 months, and we succeeded greatly. We still profited over COVID. And the staff only had to go down on 80% for 3 months while we sort of got our feet off the ground. They're all back up with a pay rise after that. But I'd never do it again. I'd furlough the business and I'd go and deliver Amazon parcels. It was an absolute nightmare. It almost finished me. Just the stress. The stress of thinking you're going to lose what you've spent so many years building. And government support was okay. As a director, it was terrible because we've always paid ourselves based on performance. So like a lot of directors, we're minimum wage and we top up with monthly divvies. And there was no support for that community at all. If we furloughed ourselves, we'd have been on £500, £600 a month as company directors because they didn't take the earnings into account. So COVID, I think, really was the thing that gelled the company. Because we came out a bit the other side and we were knackered, we were beaten up mentally, but the immense satisfaction that we had for nailing what other people didn't over that period was immense. And we got straight back into in-person as soon as we could. Things like one of our events when we did the different colour lanyards during COVID. Where your green, your amber, or your red lanyards. Green, hug me, I don't give a shit. Amber, just talk from a distance. And red, and that was brilliant. Things like that. And I stole that idea, I hasten to add. Creativity is best, plagiarism is quicker. But the minute the opportunity came along to get back to in-person events, people were all over it. We had 1,000 people at Digit Expo in 2021.
Wow.
We only expected 500 or 600, and 1,000 were there. But we had it all spaced out. We had it all, distanced and everything else. But you could see that it was back to normal. And there were people who were suggesting, virtual events, they're replacing in-person events. So there'll never be an in-person event ever, in the world. And what a bollocks that is, People love to see each other. They want to hug. They want to taste different coffee. They want to just get out of the house. Let's not forget, people have been stuck in their houses for 18 months. From the kids, having to walk the dog 3 times a day, having to sit in the same place, look out the same window. And there is something to say that, that's nice to be at home all the time and with your family, but actually you do need a break from it sometimes, normally Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And I think we're now seeing more and more people going, actually, I want to go to the office. I don't want to work from home 5 days a week. I want that 2 days in the office. It's a break. It's a palate cleanse from the routine. So in-person events are stronger now than they were pre-COVID. I'm glad for that. And 2022 was a record year for us. It was huge. just that
It's
opportunity
wild.
for everybody to buy the house.
Yeah, I remember. I think I might have spoken to Peter yourself, and I think he's had a waiting list. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is a clear indicator of things will be getting back to normal. And I think, for our community in Scotland as well, I think psychologically was good to kind of get back, and again, you guys forged through fire, as they say, and, you survived it. And I think it definitely was the catalyst I think you needed to kind of kick on. And then you've just grown from strength to strength. So, yeah, definite lessons learned then. And then in terms of, yeah,
I think it lends well to Scotland as well, though, as a nation. It's so insular, so incestuous probably isn't the best word to use, but everybody seems to know everybody. It's
yeah,
like the is it 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, where it talks about all the people he's linked to and probably related to. It's like that in Scotland. It's an amazing thing. And I think that cohesive community spirit that Scotland has, which I think is a lot better than elsewhere, I think helped us to kick back into action a lot quicker. The support we had online, the advocates of what we were doing, it was phenomenal. So big up to Scotland for the support as well over that period.
yeah, definitely. And then, so yeah, moving on to the segment called Personal Insights. What's the most unusual place or situation where you've had a great business idea? Most people say the toilet.
And that would have been my first answer, the toilet. And I was wondering where that question was going. Where's the most unusual place? Okay. Um, Yeah, it's normally the loo. It is that sort of sanctuary, isn't it, for thinking? Although most people take their phones in with them now and end up
Yeah,
sort of spending half an hour doing something that normally takes 5 minutes. But which does give you more thinking time. It used to be in the car on the way to the office.
yeah,
Now it's on the dog walk.
yeah,
Yeah, it's the dog walk that does it for me. Walking the dog. It's not unusual. Um, I'm pretty sure there have been unusual places that I've had ideas, but the most prevalent place for ideas is dog walking, headphones on, throwing the ball, walking, thinking, and normally come at the other end of the walk. There's an idea to be suggested, laughed at, and thrown out.
nice. And probably, like, I think when we've asked this question, people have struggled. So, if you could have dinner with any three entrepreneurs, dead or alive, who would they be and why? If it's too much to think of three, just give me one.
Um, I forget his name, but I don't know if he was an entrepreneur as such. He was a businessman. The guy that created New Lanark. Do you know the name of the guy that created New Lanark?
No.
But obviously he was a very rich man. He was a mill owner, and what he did is he
Oh,
created
New
New
Lanark,
Lanark,
as in the place.
as in the
Yeah,
place New
yeah,
Lanark.
yeah, yeah. I
I
only
see,
remember
not
that
not
from
not the
like,
business
but
New Lanark.
I was going to say I only remember New Lanark from a school trip, and then I must have done something
Yeah,
bad because I wasn't allowed anywhere near it. So there you go.
the backstory to that was, this landowner, business owner, mill owner had noticed, when staff are sick, production goes down. If the children aren't educated, their understanding of what they should
Yeah,
be doing to be productive goes down. So he created healthcare, education, housing, all within that region for his work staff, and realized, I think that was the first time that sort of company culture was created, back in the, I don't know, mid 19th century. I forget the guy's name, and I have read up about it a number of times, but it's just flown away. But the guy from New Lanark would be one.
yeah,
Um, I always choose Steve Jobs when people ask me this question, because I did really, really respect how he went around building Apple up the way he did,
yeah,
and I think businesses up in that point, your IBMs, your Xeroxes, and the companies of that day that were big in tech would build stuff, then find a way to sell it to people. But what he did the other way around. He said, let's find out what people want and then build it.
yeah,
So he was the first guy, I think, to really focus on the sort of customer experience of what they do and dig down more into the customer to create what he did. I mean, look at the fantastic products they've produced and still do to this day. Um, a third one, I'd like to choose somebody local, actually, probably for this. Um, I really like Ricky Nickel from Comsworld. I don't know if you know
yeah.
Ricky. I've
I,
met him a
I I
few
don't know him
times,
personally,
and
but
and
yeah,
but but Ricky, got a great backstory. He battled ill health. He was very ill for a long time. He's built up a Scottish company that is still winning massive contracts this day. They won one recently, I think. I think this might have been a 9-figure deal they've just pulled in. It might have been Glasgow City Council infrastructure or something like that. But he's a really good sort of local success story, and he's done it with sort of blood, sweat, and tears. I'm pretty sure at the start of it all now, and he's sort of reaping the rewards of his hard work. And on the sort of 4 or 5 occasions I've met him, he's been a very cordial, friendly, genuine chap. Despite his success, he's always been good for chewing the fat. And yeah, probably Ricky would be one as well.
Nice, nice. It could be a shout for the podcast. I don't know. I might.
Yeah. He's a great character.
Yeah, nice. And then, so what are some of your guilty pleasures or hobbies outside of work that keep you balanced?
I like PUBG. Big PUBG fan. So I like gaming. I've got 2 boys who are 9 and 12 who love gaming as well. So we play things together. We do like a game of Gang Beasts or a game of Rocket League or
Yeah.
stuff like that. So playing games with the kids. Going to the park with them as well and kicking a ball is pretty good because they're not brilliant at football, but I am. And it's my aim to make them brilliant at football. And we love going up there and just booting stuff around and going out with the dog. And we live on the edge of the countryside, so we're up in the Braids of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
So being on the Braids, we can walk in many different directions and go on a different walk every time. So just going out and exploring the countryside. But guilty pleasures, like you, I like a scotch. In terms of the connoisseur approach to scotch, not just sort of sitting there crying into a bottle every night, wondering where my troubles are.
Yeah.
But I think discovering new whiskies is something I've quite enjoyed doing now. I'm starting to collect based on a suggestion from yourself, because obviously
Nice.
you were talking about that. I haven't started collecting watches yet. So that's one thing that you talked about that hasn't rubbed off on me.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any guilty pleasures. Eating too much chocolate probably is one of those things. Turning my back on exercise as a guilty pleasure, but one that's going to harm me further down the line. Hobbies, not so much. Hobbies is family for me.
Same.
It's family time. I haven't got time to have a hobby.
Yeah,
Just the
yeah.
family.
Nice, and it's good to get a personal insight, and a kind of background in you as well. And do you have any superstitions or routines that you follow before an important meeting or decision? Right, I used to just walk everything through my head. Like, see if I would go for an interview. This is so sad. I would literally go the day before and just walk the routine. So I'm just like mentally psyched for it because I like the attention span of a child, and I'd be like, so I just needed to kind of go through that. So that would be my superstition or routine. But yeah, I'm interested to get yours. Yeah.
No, I don't prepare heavily for meetings. And the reason I don't prepare for meetings, I know that all the preparation I do is going to go out the window. In my business, most of my meetings are to do with selling a product or a service to a prospect. And you can't really prepare for the response that people are going to give you. There's natural things that you have to do when you're selling, and you have to have objection handling techniques. You have to make sure that the features, advantages, and benefits of the product you're selling are coming across in a way that they understand. You have to make sure that you ask the questions, open questions, leading questions to prospects to make sure that just in case there's any hidden objections there, can we squeeze them out in this meeting to make sure we don't have to have another meeting, then another meeting, then another meeting, then just for you to say no. So there's no superstitions. I think the only superstition we have, not just about meetings or decisions, but in the way we operate, is we don't put anything on our sponsor spreadsheet until the document is signed. So we don't put that up in lieu of something coming back to us. We only ever do that once it's done. And that's a big superstition for me, that if it goes up on the sponsor spreadsheet before the customer is signed off, it's not coming in. So that's probably the only superstition I have. No routines. The only routine I have is setting my alarm on my phone for 1 minute before the call is due to start, because I have missed in my business career 2 meetings where I've forgotten about them, or technology has failed and I've not attended that meeting, one online, one in person. And it's something that keeps me up at night, is the thought of not turning up to a meeting. So we'd like you going out and tasting the joint as you did back in the day. Mine is a mortal fear of standing somebody up. Being late and standing people up is a mortal fear of mine. So I always look at my diary, then set an alarm for 1 minute before the call is due to start, so I know I'm there.
Nice. I like it. And then talking about some challenges and successes, obviously, we discussed the biggest risk that with the company, but I want to talk about like failures. So what's one failure you've experienced that turned out to be a blessing in disguise?
My first business partner, I haven't alluded to this, but I started the business with somebody else. That individual didn't perform. The challenge that we had at the time, or I had at that time, was we owned a business 50-50.
Yeah.
And for anybody who owns a business which obviously has a shareholding, if it's two of you and it's 50-50 and you come to loggerheads on something, it's incredibly hard to get resolve on that. It's just banging your head against a brick wall, basically. Legally as well. If you wanted to go legal, you both own half the business. If two decision makers don't agree, then it's an instant stalemate. So I had to off this person from the business, and found a legal way to do it. It was horrific. We had to shutter the business and relaunch it as a result of it, without this other director, and as a result of this other person not being in the business, we are where we are today. And with great support from Jill and Pete, and obviously the support from Pete in particular, because he's now a co-owner and director of the business as well as a result of that, and would have been anyway at some point. But to not have this one individual in the business is a blessing, and has certainly taught me huge amounts about trust, monitoring, understanding. I took everything at face value. I was green behind the gills. I thought he'd paid the VAT, and he hadn't paid the VAT. So I ended up having to use all of the money that we'd squirreled to grow the business to get rid of that debt, and then had to get rid of the business in order to me just walk away and start again. And that was really tough at the time, but a huge relief after the legal process had taken place. And it cost me about 14 grand to get him out of the business. But it was probably the best £14,000 I have ever spent, because we wouldn't be where we are today with that guy still in situ.
Nice. And then kind of moving into something like, how do you handle criticism and setbacks then?
Criticism I take on the chin, to be honest with you. If Jill criticises me, I just say sorry and do it right next time. If Pete criticises me, as we're co-directors, I sort of tend to fight back a little bit, because that's sort of the power dynamic. Not that there is one, nor there should be, but we're directors of the business, and we agree on things and we disagree on others. I normally take it on the chin, to be honest with you. I don't think you can fight criticism. I think if somebody criticises you, you've got to listen and self-examine and establish whether or not they've got a point. Otherwise, you're just being ignorant. Ignorance doesn't grow businesses. Ignorance builds businesses, as we're seeing with certain businesses who've been in the news of late. What about ignorance that could be killing that business further down the line? Could well be. There's a history of it going back, if you look at the legacy attached to that as well. Is that ignorance? Probably is. I think that the problem in business is bosses think they're the boss in every single way, and they make all the key decisions. They can't be disagreed with and stuff like that. I think the reason I've held on to my staff. I mean, Lola, my marketing manager, has been with me, I think, for 6 years. Jill's been with me for 11 years. Pete's been with me for 11 years. Graham, our sub-editor, has been with us for 4 or 5 years now. Ben's been with us for 5 years. That's half our staff who've been with us for that level of time. And I think that's because you listen. If you don't get things right, you put your hands up. So I think every boss has got to take criticism or at least examine the criticism and not just fight back against it for the sake of it because of that power dynamic, which I don't think should exist.
Yeah. I love that. It's almost stoic. What you said there was ignorance kills businesses. I think
Oh yeah,
that's. I'm getting that in
hundreds
a
of
t-shirt.
thousands of businesses. It does kill businesses. It's and I think I think ignorance has killed a lot of tech businesses, and I think I wouldn't say it's so much ignorance, but I think if you look at some of the tech businesses we've seen come and go in Scotland over the
Yeah,
years, and there's one in particular I'd like to mention, but I won't. But tech founders are generally techies.
yeah,
They're generally pure and out techies. They're mathematicians. They're coding gurus, whatever the case may be. And they've come up with this idea and they've implemented it, but they still want to be CEO once it scales. And I think that's a massive mistake. And I've seen a number of tech businesses go down because this guy who should be sitting down and being product focused is now trying to learn how to scale his own business, having never done it before, and won't bring somebody in because he doesn't want to report into somebody, even though he's the founder. And I've seen partnerships break up. I've seen businesses go down. That's ignorance, I
yeah,
think, in some ways. I mean, you've probably seen it as well. I mean, you'd have plenty of people who've
yeah.
gone into business and may not have sort of seen the difference and insecurity in particular. Um, but I think we're seeing less of that now. I think news gets around that this isn't the way to do it, guys. Be the CTO, be the founder, but be the CTO, not the CEO,
Yeah.
or be the founder and be the CPO, but not the CEO. Bring somebody in who knows market, growth, strategy. Concentrate on the product. Let the
Yeah,
others do the rest.
that person that helps you retire in a few years. I had
Yeah, yeah.
someone who's become a friend of mine. They scaled their company out of stealth after a couple of years and sold it for a lot of money. And they said the same. They were like, I don't have the skill set to generate the revenue and to scale this business and to effectively get us a nice payday. My job is to devise the product, speak to people, look at the engineering side of it. And it's like, that's absolutely perfect. And he's like, if I did it all myself, it would take us 5 years, 10 years, might not even get there. But after a couple of years, that's them in a really good position. And that's what they wanted at the end of the day. But nah, I really like that. It's sound advice. And then, yeah, give me what's the one achievement you're proud of since starting the company? Obviously, there'll be very many, right? There'll be loads, but what's the one you go, this is amazing?
No, I think it was actually recent, and I think there's been many of them. It's a layered thing. It keeps happening. We hit the Weege in May with our expo,
For our audience, that's
um,
Glasgow.
and it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
There was a buzz that I've never seen at an event before. The whole reaction to it was amazing. I've had exhibitors. An exhibitor emailed me yesterday saying, we've actually converted a customer already since that. That was at the end of May. We've converted a customer and got 3.8 times return on our investment into the event
amazing.
from
Yeah,
one lead. And you imagine how that's going to be a recurring customer. They're going to upsell him, and as
yeah,
they scale, they're going to create more services. That's going to be 20, 30, 40 times
yeah,
over the duration of the life cycle of that customer. And hearing stories like that, that's amazing. But Glasgow Expo for me was the perfect event. And I was proud of the team more than anything else. The way the team nailed it, the ideas that went into it, the marketing campaign was brilliant. We had a great campaign with the statue with the cone on its head. That
yeah,
became
yeah.
our sort of our brand for that event.
Love
And
it.
we just sort of said to Glasgow, we're here, we're here. Sorry, it's taken 10 years, but we're here, we're finally here. And 1,500 people just descended into it and had a whale of a time. Phenomenal. Actually, certainly Glasgow Expo, I think, is up there.
Nice. And obviously it was a new territory as well for you guys. And, as you said,
Yeah.
it taken 10 years to kind of obviously kind of scale out. And yeah, obviously I've not been to the Glasgow event yet, but 2025 I'll be there. yeah, and I look forward to it because I
Yeah,
don't
you
get
keep
back to.
saying you keep saying that.
I
I'll have to have it written in blood for you to be there.
so I feel like such a scumbag. We were talking earlier, and it was like, oh, we go to this event, and I'm like, I'm in Switzerland, so I'm like, oh well, tough cheese, pun intended. So yeah, and a definite Glasgow's one. I think yeah, I mean, I'd need to kick the arse out of it. I'd need like, I don't know, coming in and like suspended wires, and I talk to people about these things, and he thinks I'm a lunatic, but obviously I'm taking the
So,
piss. But yeah,
Glasgow's a really exciting place at the minute.
yeah,
In terms of the council are investing into it like mad. The great support mechanisms, and they're starting to really steal a mark on Edinburgh, and Edinburgh's got to start sort of looking over its shoulder because I think in a number of years Glasgow is going to have a bigger tech community than Edinburgh, and Edinburgh's got a
yeah,
20-year head start on them. So
yeah.
they've got to look out. Um, there's the ecosystem in terms of support and growth and stuff like that in Glasgow at the minute is head and tails above Edinburgh, and it's a shame because if Edinburgh built itself up to what it is, it needs to maintain that, and at the minute it's not really happening.
Hmm.
I fear to say.
Well, competition's good.
Competition is good, and I think it is healthy. It also means it creates two markets for us. It's created another market for us, the Glasgow market, which is it's all good at the end of the day.
100%. And then moving into our last segment, then the vision in the future. Obviously, we've spoken about where things will go, obviously spreading throughout the UK and everything else. But how do you envision the future of your industry in the next 10 years?
Um, I think the events side of it. I think business as usual. The events industry as itself is growing massively. The expo sector is growing massively. Lots of M&A activity going on. Big super companies being created, events where 20, 30,000 people are going. That's not going to diminish. I think that'll grow. I think as we're seeing more scrutiny applied to the events industry about ESG and waste, I think that's going to be something that all event companies are going to have to think about is how they create their events now, what they use, what they don't use, what they don't have to use. An example being when we did Expo in Glasgow, we looked at getting the hall carpeted, and it would have cost £12,000 to get the hall carpeted, and it was going to go in the bin,
Ah,
4 tons of carpet. And I went, well, look at that. It's not the cost, but I'm not going to have to finger point at me for throwing 4 tons of unrecyclable material in the bin for 8 hours usage. So I think the events industry's got to be very careful. I think they'll come under more scrutiny, and people will pick and choose which events they'll go to based on its ESG credentials and its claim to be as carbon neutral as possible. For us as a business, I think we've already discussed the potential of scale into other territories, trying to take the business model and the community spirit into other places where it may not be that prevalent. Um, I think on the publishing side, I worry about the publishing side. I don't think not AI. I hasten to add because AI can't write for shit. It's not a journalist. It can write an explainer about something, but it can't put anything down with opinion and heart and soul into it. There's no persona to Chat GPT. Certainly not at the minute. And if it does get one, God help us. But I think we've got so much information available to us now that people are very limited on what digital products they're going to put their eye over. We've been quite fortunate that we've created ads for a local audience. I think if we tried to create it for a national audience, as in UK wide, we'd really struggle. But because we're Scotland centric with most of our content, I think that's held us in good stead, and we've maintained that sort of 750,000 page views a year on the site. And I think we've reached that sort of plateau now. But I do fear for the publishing industry. I just don't think people are really reading content as much now. I think video is sort of taking over a lot of that now. So I fear for journalists.
yeah. I think it's quite a daunting thought because everything seems to be moving over to like instant gratification, like TikTok, a couple second video or short videos that are like 30 seconds, 50 seconds, and even some AI platforms can summarize an entire website, within like two sentences, three sentences, and that's like, where's but you want to read the passion, the energy, the enthusiasm of journalism, and again, there's even talk of things like massive pushes towards metaverse, and it's like you're going to stick on a headset to look at really shit 2D graphics to read a story. It's
The
just like
meta,
bonkers. Yeah,
the metaverse is like it's like a fart in a hurricane, isn't it?
yeah,
We had a little whiff of it and it's gone. The same was said for a number of things. Generative AI at the minute is very, very limited. It's incredibly limited, but I think what it can do compared to what it could do a few years ago is scary.
yeah,
And I think, decisions are going to have to be made sooner or later. I think something like that can be weaponized.
yeah,
We're already seeing it, deep fakes with political campaigns and stuff like that. Um, it's going to be, and we've probably seen it used in all the troubles that we've seen over the past week or so
yeah,
since the terrible incident in Southport. It probably, technology's probably been the biggest creator of, the gathering of the fascists that are out, causing all the damage and causing all the trouble. And it's been technology that's fueled
yeah,
that. Yeah, scary. And I think David Bowie surmised it very well back in the 90s when he launched BowieNet and Jeremy Paxman was interviewing him. And he said the internet is beautiful and terrifying at the same time. I think that still stands and holds really strongly today. It is a beautiful thing, technology, but equally terrifying.
yeah. We can only hope that journalism can remain, well, transparent. But again, in this digital warfare age, it's either going to make things worse or eventually just kill journalism, and that kind of, well, online content. But anyway, we digress. And in terms of if you were running the company, Ray, what else would you be doing?
I've always wanted to run a pub. I've always fancied the idea of running a pub. I spent my teenage years in a pub because my mum had a pub.
Yeah,
And I really loved it. I loved just that, again, it's that community thing, a local pub, getting to know people, stuff like that. And there's a serious element of running a pub as well. You work bloody hard, I know that much. But yeah, maybe running a pub and then running pubs, owning pubs, maybe. I'd have tried to sort of build on that. I would have just wanted to be, this one pub guy. I'd have wanted a lot of pubs. Um, the thing I love the most about what I do is selling the product.
yeah,
So I'd probably, as I was in sales before I started the business, I'd quite happily go back into sales and just do pure selling because I love that face-to-face interaction. I love the challenge of somebody maybe not wanting what it is I want them to buy and convincing them to buy it. Huge sense of satisfaction doing that. The old dog still got it. Um, so yeah, either staying in media sales or running a pub. Don't get me wrong, I didn't want to be a brain surgeon or fly to the moon or anything like
yeah.
that. I've always had pretty simple taste.
Nah, nah, I love it. I love it. And what we'll do then is we'll conclude with one last question then, right? Because I don't want to keep you any longer. And any sound advice for anyone starting a company or for current founders? Anything that you want to impart on people?
Yeah, don't think it's going to be fun. It's not. There's no fun in starting a business. It's hard work. It's sacrifice. Um, there's nothing romantic. It's an illusion, the romance of starting a business, particularly a tech business, when you're sort of going up against thousands of other companies probably trying to do the same thing as you. Um, Learn how to do admin straight away. Keep up to speed with your admin. Don't let your admin fall away. If your admin falls away, you're stifling the growth of your business. So it's got to be a balancing act. And the minute you can outsource that admin or get somebody else to do it, do it. Don't try and do it all yourself. But if you have to, make sure you keep that in check. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. if you don't know something, don't assume you know the answer. You show that vulnerability and ask the question. People, LinkedIn nowadays, some people criticize LinkedIn and say, oh, it's all learning shit now. It's all about, people puffing their chests out and, writing stories about how they gave a homeless guy at McDonald's, and look at me, everyone, the humble brag. But I think it's also a great place to go and ask a question. And I've done it many times before. Where can I get so-and-so? 10 answers in an hour. It's brilliant. Ask questions. That's the way to sort of launch a business, is ask more questions than you've ever asked before. Have a plan. Always have a plan. Don't do it on the back of a fag packet. I got away with it because I was very, very fortunate. I did it on the back of a fag packet, but I learned very, very quickly you don't continue doing it on the back of a fag packet. Choose who you work with. Choose who you launch the business with. If there's any doubt in your mind about the person you're launching the business with, don't launch it with them. Or at least have a very, very uncomfortable conversation with that person about why you're feeling uncomfortable and get that ironed out. Choose your allies very carefully, particularly your business allies and your partners that you go into business with. But then obviously, there is a fun side to it. I've had many fun sides to doing what I do. I have fun now. I still work hard, but I have fun because we've got the business to a certain place where we can look back and appreciate it. But the first 3 or 4 years, don't enjoy it. You won't.
Yeah, it's sound advice, and I think some people can be quite naive into these things. But again, Ray, I want to thank you so much for your time and also for your support for our community here in Scotland and for me personally. You've given me many opportunities. Some of them I've completely ballsed up live, and some of them have been okay. Let's just say I've been asked back. Yeah.
Well, then you mentioned that. And more importantly, make sure you come to one of the dinners because you're a great dinner guest and great company.
I appreciate it.
Really good to see you.
I appreciate it. And again, for everyone, digit.fyi. Finally, I've been able to say it after much rehearsal in my head. I don't know why. There must be the dyslexia.
Can you dig it?
Yeah, I know. But everyone, please support Ray and his team. They do excellent work here for our community here in Scotland, and obviously they've got a wide reach as well. So it's always a great source of information. A great community that's been created, and obviously the expos are world class in my opinion. So, but yes, Ray, thanks very much, and I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, mate. Good to see you.
Cheers.